Stacy Lynn Harp is coaching with heart. Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To learn more about Stacy and her coaching services, visit stacylharp.com. That's STACYL harp.com.
Welcome, everyone, to this edition of Coaching with Heart. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to look at our second part and hear what Positive Friends Do, Part 2. And before I begin, I want to thank you all who are listening, and those of you who have been commenting. I also want to thank you. You know, it's interesting because what we talked about yesterday, I got a lot of different feedback on, and it's really cool to see how the Lord is working in your life, as well as, you know, working in my life, because believe me, I'm learning a ton of stuff here. One person wrote me and said that they realized that one of their friends wanted way too much quality time with them and didn't promote their freedom. See, that's great. You know, it's great that you were able to realize that and make a difference. Another person highlighted to me in an email that they like the issue of being referred to and having a name. And so a couple of people have pointed out some different things from Part 1. So if you missed Part 1, I would just encourage you to go over and check it out. Today what we're going to do is we're going to look at Part 2. And before I jump into actually what I'm going to say, I want to invite you to go and like my new Facebook page over on Facebook. It is facebook.com/Stacy Lynn Harp MS. So it's my name, Stacy Lynn Harp HARP, M as in mom, S as in Sam, MS. That's basically my degree, Masters of Science there. Just go and like the page over there, and you'll be getting updates as we make that page more active. Right now we're just starting it, but go over there, like it. That would be an encouragement to me. Okay, I'm not going to review yesterday. What I'm going to do is just going to jump into today. How many of you like Winnie the Pooh? If you like Winnie the Pooh, then I guarantee you and me will be friends forever, because I love Winnie the Pooh. In fact, I could start singing the song, Winnie the Pooh, but I'll spare you. What's really neat about Winnie the Pooh is A.A. Milne. He is the guy that wrote Winnie the Pooh, and a lot of people don't know that, A.A. Milne. He initially wrote these stories for his children, and they took off. It's really, really a fascinating story, but A.A. Milne had a very unique perspective on life, and he understood temperament and personality differences, which I totally love, because if you look at A.A. Milne's characters, you got Winnie the Pooh, you got Christopher Robin, you have Piglet, you have the rabbit, you have Tigger, who I've been referred to, that a lot of my friends have nicknamed me Tigger. You have Eeyore. So you have the different temperaments, but what you see in the relationships with Winnie the Pooh are they're all Winnie the Pooh's friend. And some people would say Winnie the Pooh is the classic codependent. But anyway, whatever. We'll get into that later, maybe in another show. But here's what A.A. Milne said. He said, "If you live to be 100, I want to be 100 minus 1 day, so I never have to live without you." Say it with me. Aww. Okay. And A.A. Milne also said this. He said, "Piglet sidled up to Pooh from behind. 'Pooh?' he whispered. 'Yes, Piglet.' 'Nothing,' said Piglet, taking Pooh's hand. 'I just wanted to be sure of you.'" Aww. Don't you want Piglet as a friend? I know I do. Piglet and Pooh, they're so cute together. Anyway, alright, so I just thought I'd throw that out to you, because you know what? What makes Winnie the Pooh so popular is that it's really about friendship, and all these people have different personalities, and yet they get along. So let's look at a couple more scriptures today regarding friendship. Okay, so the first one I put is listen attentively to your friends. You know, Ecclesiastes 3:7 says a time to tear apart and a time to sew together, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Now, I don't know about you, but I talk a lot. And it can be very, very challenging to be quiet and actually hear people. And in our society today, where we have things, constantly going, it is really, really hard to sit and literally listen to what people have to say. But I really want to encourage you to, because usually when people go to therapy, what they're there for is they want somebody to listen to them. And as much as I know some people in the Christian community hate Oprah Winfrey, I'm going to tell you something about Oprah. Oprah knows how to listen to people, and that's why she's so popular, because her guests on her TV show, she listens to them, and she gives them a platform to share their story. Everybody wants to be listened to, and they don't want to just be, like fake listened to. They really, really want to be listened to. So I want to encourage you in your relationships to really stop and examine that and find out if you're really hearing what your friends are saying. Sometimes it's really good to ask a follow-up question when your friend is talking. You can say something like, especially if you're not sure, just say this. Say, what I'm hearing you say is, and then you fill in the blank of what you think that person is saying. Okay, it's a really easy line. You can write that down. What I'm hearing you say is, and then you fill in the blank. And then you say, is that correct? What I'm hearing you say is that you're having a hard time today. Is that correct? The person will then say, yeah, that's actually right. Or, no, actually I'm not. What I meant to say was, and they'll clarify it. And then you can go, okay, what I'm hearing you say is blah, blah, blah. Is that correct? And then they'll go, yes, exactly. And believe it or not, a lot of people don't know that basic thing. I didn't until I went to therapy. I was raised in such a chaotic home, and there's bad communication, all that. So I had to learn it, and it's a learned skill. Hopefully, if you were fortunate enough to be raised in a home where you were taught that, you have that. But for me, it was a learned skill. It took a long time. Okay, so the second thing is say positive things to your friends. Duh, right? You would be surprised. You would really be surprised. Proverbs 16:24 says, gracious words are like a honeycomb, sweetness to the soul and health to the body. And I also want to look up for you Proverbs chapter 15, verse 26. And I should have had this written out beforehand, but don't worry, I'm going to type it in really fast here. That's what it says. That's why I wanted you to do it. I wanted you to see this. Proverbs 15:26 says, evil plans are an abomination to the Lord, but pleasant words are pure. There's the NIV version says, but gracious words are pure in his sight. The King James says, but the words of the pure are pleasant words. So God likes pleasant words, gracious words. And so say positive things to your friends. Affirm them. So on the one hand, we're telling you to listen to your friends. On the other hand, we're also telling you to say positive things to your friends. I know that with some friends, maybe it's a gripe session with some friends. And once in a while, that's okay. But I would caution against too much of that, because that can really be very detrimental to your relationship in the end. All right, number 3, ask open-ended questions. Proverbs 20 verse 5 says, a plan in the heart of a man is like deep water, but a man of understanding draws it out. Okay? So ask open-ended questions. And you know what? I have to be honest with you and tell you this is where I struggle the most. In my marriage, one of the biggest areas I had to deal with in my marriage to my husband, Randall, who I've been married to almost 21 years, is learning to ask him questions. I was raised in a house where if I asked questions, I got smacked down. It wasn't a good thing. It was like, oh my gosh, shut up, Stacy Harp, or Stacy, Stacy. And it was never allowed. So I've really had to learn to ask questions. It's not that I'm not interested in my husband or anybody else because I don't ask questions, but there's part of me that's afraid to ask a question still. Not totally now. I'm really had to work on it. But for me, it's really a hard thing to ask people questions. And it really bugs me when when I'm talking to somebody and all they do is ask me questions. Oh my gosh, it's like, would you shut up already? But yeah, at the same time, I know that person isn't trying to be annoying. They're just sincerely interested in trying to find out more about me. So how do you do that? And for me, this is one of the hardest things I have to do, is ask people questions. So what you do is you ask questions like this. Here are a few examples. What do you like most about your job? Who has been the best influence in your life? What would you change about your childhood? I guess those are questions you would ask certain people, maybe not everybody. But, just ask probing questions like, what's your favorite color? Tell me about the first time, you played cards. I don't know. This is an area I have to grow in, so you guys can pray for me on that and encourage me. Say, hey, ask me some questions. So I have to do that. The point is, make it an open question. Don't make it a yes or no question. Are you feeling bad today? No. How was your day? Good. You know what I'm saying? Okay, so ask open-ended questions. And you know what? Therapists actually know how to do this. And I tell you what, as a therapist, I had no problem doing it because it wasn't a friendship. But as a friend, it can sometimes be really hard for me. Anyway, okay, so number 4, share your feelings and encourage your friends to share their feelings too. And this is a little bit different than the other things, because what we're talking about here is we're actually talking about being able to be vulnerable and share the real truth about what's going on with us. So, for example, you could say something like to a friend, let's say they're having a bad day or they're pretending to be happy because they have masked depression. You could say something like, I sense that you're hurting. Doesn't it sound different than, it looks like you're hurting? No, because what you're doing is you're saying, no, I'm kind of sensing that you're hurting. Well, how would you respond to that? Would you go, well, what do you mean? Well, how could you tell? Or you could say something like, has something difficult happened in your life? Those of us most of us have had something difficult happen in our life. But that gives that person permission to share, you know what? Yeah, actually, it has, and it's kind of what's on my mind right now. How do you feel about what has happened? Or you can say something like this without asking a question. You can just make a statement like, you know what? I want you to know that I care. You don't even have to say, I want you to know that I care. If you ever want to talk, I'm here. You don't even have to say that. But you could just say, I want you to know that I care. And I want you to know that recently I sent out some text messages just to some of my close friends. I texted them a couple of things. I texted them stuff like, I want you to know I love you very much and I appreciate you as my friend. And every single friend of mine texted me back and told me that they needed that. Everyone. I couldn't believe it. It was amazing. So encourage your friends to share their real feelings too. I'm trying to wrap this up in under 15 minutes. I don't think it's gonna happen, but I'm gonna probably go over a few minutes, so bear with me. Maybe we'll do 20 minutes. Okay, so all right, so let's now look at another scripture, and this is the scripture in Proverbs chapter 16, verse 23, which says, "A wise man's heart guides his mouth, and his lips promote instruction." So that is something that's really important when you're sharing your feelings and trying to encourage your friends to share their real feelings too. A lot of times people are afraid to share their feelings because they've been hurt because the other person doesn't reciprocate or they don't appreciate the depth of what that person shared. And that's just something to be really careful with. You might not know how hard it is for somebody to share something with you. You might think it's a benign thing, like, oh my gosh, that's it, really? I can't believe that. But trust me, people have a hard time sometimes sharing things because they've had their feelings dismissed. You could be the first person who's actually affirmed that. So always try to affirm your friend when they do that. So here's a few more healthy qualities of healthy friendships, and I'm going to end with these three. Number one, be consistent. Be consistent in your friendships. You know what? I can't emphasize this enough, because one of the reasons I believe personally that most friendships dissolve or there's problems with them is because people are flakes and they're not consistent. If you know what, if you're gonna have a good healthy relationship, be consistent in it. If you have a friend, you're gonna tell them that you want to talk to them on the phone once a week, set up a time, make sure that you call them every week at that time. My husband does this with his best friend. It's amazing to me to watch a man in this very consistent relationship. You wouldn't think men would do that, but my husband, great example. So be consistent. Keep your word in that relationship. Have it go both ways, and just be very consistent. That's the only way your friendship is going to work. And think about this. Jesus is consistent in his love for you and his relationship with you. And he is your model. So look at what he did with his friends. When Peter blew it, Jesus still loved him, and he was still consistent with him in that relationship. Another thing is healthy relationships. A healthy friend will trust your motives. And believe me, this is another issue where I could probably spend, hours talking about it. But here's the thing, if you've been set up in your life and you've had relationships where somebody has done something to you and they pulled the rug out from underneath your feet, then you might be on guard with this one, and it might be hard for you to believe that person really means what they say. And this really ties back to being consistent. If you can't trust your friend's motives, then there's something wrong, right? And hopefully your friend's motive is to help you and to build you up. I can tell you what, if there's a pattern where they do something and it turns out that it's nefarious or it's something that's not good, then that's somebody you might want to begin to pull back from, because they're just going to continue to hurt you. If you want to build consistency in a relationship with somebody like that, then you're going to need really good boundaries. And you're going to have to tell them, okay, I'm only going to do this. And you got to set the boundaries. And we're going to be talking about boundaries a lot in the next couple of weeks as we look at some of the negative implications of friendships. The last thing I want to say is that a healthy quality of a healthy friendship is somebody who can listen to a different viewpoint without attacking you. This, my friend, is one of the biggest problems in our society today, is that it's black or white, it's liberal or conservative. It's just black or white. It's liberal, conservative. It's Christian. It's atheist. It's either or. But the thing is that you can have friends who have completely different viewpoints on stuff if you truly have real tolerance. It used to be that tolerance meant, you know what, okay, you can do that, and I'm okay with that. I can deal with that. But now tolerance means you agree with me, or else I'm going to punch you in the nose. Is that tolerant? No. But honestly, if you look at today's media, that's really what they promote. So what I would encourage you in this particular thing is if you're in a relationship and somebody tells you something that you disagree with, be quiet and listen to them. You don't know why they have that particular opinion until you really listen to them and get to know why. You may be surprised, actually. You totally may be surprised. Anyway, I could go on and on, but I'm trying to keep this short. So let me end this by saying Hebrews 10:24 reminds us, and here it is, and let us consider how to stimulate one another to love and good deeds. And in our relationships, hopefully, that's what we're doing in our positive, healthy relationships, is we're stimulating one another to be more loving and to do good for one another. So I want to thank you for tuning in. As always, feel free to leave your comments. I love them. It helps me out. And tomorrow we'll be back with another Coaching with Heart show.
Thank you for listening to this audio presentation. To discover more resources from Stacy Lynn Harp, clinically trained marriage and family therapist and biblical coach, visit stacyLharp.com. That's STACYL Harp.com. Coaching with Heart.